Hi, I'm Natalia Munoz. I'm here with my colleague, Johan Rashi Vega. We're interviewing the three candidates for state representative for the city of Holyoke. Today, we start with Pat Beaudry. He's 33 years old. And before we say any more about him, we would like him to introduce himself to all of you. So, Pat, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Natalia. Thank you, Johan. My name is Pat Beaudry. I grew up here in the city. I went to E.N. White, Peck, and Holyoke High School, where I graduated 2005 before heading out to Boston, where I got a bachelor's degree from Suffolk University in government, and then landed a job on Beacon Hill with, among other elected officials, Senator Sonia Chang Diaz, the first Latina state senator in Massachusetts history, and then our hometown rep before Rep Vega, Michael Kane, and after he resigned, Senator Mike Knappich as his Holyoke liaison back in the district. I went on to work a few other public affairs jobs in and around state government and earned my master's in public administration from UMass Boston on nights and weekends. And about 4 years ago, I was offered a job at the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, which is the state regional planning agency for Hampden, Hampshire County, where I manage their policy, press, and public engagement. And I've been there ever since. And just about 2 years ago, I bought my first home in the Oakdale neighborhood that my family's called home for just about 80 years. So I felt when Rep Vega announced that he was not seeking re-election, I just had the experience and the commitment to this community to really offer voters a choice for a bright future. And that's what brings me here today.
You obviously have a lot of background in public service and working with other public servants. What specifically do you think you bring to the table to be Holyoke's best candidate to be state representative?
So I think there's probably two attributes that I can offer voters. One is I'm a fresh set of eyes. My opponents are both members of the current political leadership of this city. And I don't think that there's any question in this race that both of them are well-intentioned. They've made contributions to this community in their own ways. They do represent the status quo of our current leadership. And so for voters who are seeking to change things up and get some new blood into our leadership, that I can uniquely offer. Additionally, I'm not a planner. And so working across land use, transportation, environmental protection, community development, I have to be a quick study and really understand what's at the heart of the matter, how it's going to impact the residents of the valley, and then set a course and follow through and get the job done, whether it's ensuring proper funding for the PVTA or funding to address Holyoke's water management to prevent untreated sewage water going in the Connecticut River. I'm kind of all over the place, and I'm a quick study, and I'm ready to jump in and help wherever I can.
I have a follow-up question, Pat, which is, you speak about the status quo. What is your, you appear to have a critique of the status quo. What are some of the deficits, or what are some of your critiques of the status quo?
Well, we're seeing our property taxes continue to rise, right? We have not been able to really stabilize our local tax base. So much of what I think ails Holyoke needs to be addressed at the state level. We've clearly maxed out in terms of our ability to raise revenue locally. And so I'd be really excited to go out there and fight for more dollars to kind of to stop this trend that we continue to see. We're moving into our 6th year in state receivership of our schools with no end in sight. And so I really think that whoever the next state rep is from Holyoke, they need to get with the new receiver and say, what is the plan to get us out of receivership? What do you need from me to make that plan happen? And, I'm really excited to be the state rep who does deliver our district back to local control.
You speak about the school receiver, the superintendent, Dr. Alberto Vasquez Matos, who was appointed. He started on July 1st as the next receiver for Holyoke, replacing Dr. Stevens Reich, who has been here after 5 years. Dr. Vasquez Matos has a 3-year contract. Pat, what are some of the pros and cons of Holyoke once again having a receiver to lead the public schools? If there are pros and cons in your mind.
Sure. So, I'm not running for rep to necessarily re-debate receivership and it coming to the city, because that is something that is out of my control. And I think that state rep needs to focus on the future of the district. So what I'll say is this. We really hope to have seen the needle move in terms of accomplishment academically in ways that we unfortunately have not. And with seniors in particular losing their traditional senior rites of passage, senior nights, graduations, proms, we saw throughout the city lawn signs pop up as a way to recognize their efforts through their secondary education. And you do not have to go far to see a non-Holyoke public school sign. We are seeing our families opt out of this district rapidly. And I am not a parent myself, but I have plenty of friends I grew up with in the Holyoke public schools who either are or becoming parents, and they're having some really tough conversations at home right now. And so again, I think we need that local control to kind of restore that sense of ownership in our community of this district, and that we control our educational destiny. And I'll say, I continue to give Rep. Vega a lot of credit for his part working on the Student Opportunity Act, but the devils are in the detail. And at this point, we need to implement the promises made in that bill with fidelity and ensure that the tens of millions of potential dollars that Holyoke could benefit from are actually sent down the pike and into HPS classrooms.
As you may know, the Massachusetts state legislature is organized by seniority when it comes to committee appointments and staffing assignments. As a new member, how will you make sure to be heard above the din of 159 other lawmakers to make sure that Holyoke is a priority in the State House?
Sure. So I think, it's probably a little cliche, but there are workhorses and there are show horses on Beacon Hill, and I plan to be a workhorse. I've worked on Beacon Hill for 3 years. I know many of the players, many of the people who are staffers with me are now representatives themselves and rising quickly through the ranks. And so I think being a steady voice for Holyoke's priorities, while understanding that there's 160 members, to each one of them, their district's the most important thing in the world. And so you need to work together with everyone, build teams. And I really think one of the things I'm most excited about is being a member of the Gateway Cities Caucus. Gateway Cities, for those of you who don't know, is the Massachusetts term that they use to describe former manufacturing hubs like Holyoke, Chicopee, Springfield, Westfield locally, but also the New Bedfords, Fall Rivers, Haverhills, Lawrences, Lowell. And so I think that, again, so much of what ails communities like Holyoke and across the Commonwealth needs to be addressed at the state level, and you can get some really powerful policy done in the Gateway City Caucus that will uniquely address the challenges we face here.
Now that we're in this pandemic era, what are some of your ideas on how to navigate the continually changing rules on how society functions, from public gatherings to public education? Some people feel like wearing masks is an imposition on their freedom to not wear a mask, and other people are saying, please do wear a mask. Where are you in this very complex conversation?
Wear a mask, wear a mask, please. We are in so many ways in uncharted territory, and we continue to learn more and more. And I've certainly sought to humble myself in terms of proceeding in any way based on, what are the outcomes, what are the likelihoods of being infected, what's the long-term effects of being infected. And these are answers we don't have yet. And so I think we really just need to follow the public health experts to the best of our ability. We can never have a recovered economy until we get this under control. And so we can't be penny wise and pound foolish in terms of the measures we take. And I know Holyoke Public Schools is having some really tough conversations right now about what that's going to look like. I'm never going to presume to know more about education than educators and HPS families. And so really what I want to do is listen to their concerns and troubleshoot, find solutions that we can either work out on Beacon Hill or we can work out within our community. But safety first. One lost educator, one lost student, one lost student's family members, too much. And so I know we're going to proceed with the best information we have now, but I just hope that we have the courage to redirect course if we're finding that it's not safe and it's not working. And I just want to take the opportunity to thank the educators in Holyoke. I know they worked really hard last spring to push through a school year, and they're very close to starting a new school year without really knowing what it's going to look like. So I just really appreciate everything that they've done and they continue to do for our kids.
We're also in a time of such vitriol, such divisiveness, where people who don't agree, it's not that they just don't agree. They seem to just hate each other for not agreeing. So in this particular era of such deep hostile divisions, what kind of temperament you think will really work to the advantage of Holyoke with you as the state rep for the city?
Sure. I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I tend to try not to get caught up in drama. And I think that, should I be elected state rep, you're not going to see me flinging mud. You're not going to see me talking trash on Facebook. I really care about solutions that are going to impact working families here in Holyoke. And so, as a state rep, you really don't control what other people's actions are. You can legislate. You can advocate to the governor in terms of the actions he's taking on regulation. And I'm willing to take the heat if we need to, as a Commonwealth, make some unpopular decisions to keep people safe. And I want to make that clear. But I think that minds aren't moved online or in the press any longer. People are making up their own mind and they're getting their own information. And the best we can do is give people who are open and willing to take in new information, the best information we can provide them as a government.
Pat, in your literature, which I should say it's bilingual, it's in Spanish and in English, and the Spanish is good also, that's worth noting. Sometimes I see things that are in Spanish and it seems that it's not well done. But you put a lot of stock into being someone who's been in Holyoke, whose family has been in Holyoke for, it says here, 6 generations. When you say that, does you say you're a native Holyoker, 6 generations, like who are you trying to connect with? It's like, why is that important?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because it is my story and it's my family's story. And I'm proud of it. I was raised from a young age, from birth, to love this city with everything I've got. And I have a connection to the past. I know the lives that not just my mom lived growing up here, but my grandparents growing up here, my great-grandparents growing up here and beyond. And so you can just feel history course through this city, the progression of development, the waves of different immigrants to this community. And so I think that being 6th generation doesn't make my voice any more important than someone who's just moved here and hopefully registered before the deadline this month. But it's a part of me, and I think it's a part that I wanted to tell people because, when I think about what Holyoke Public Schools are going to need, I went to the Holyoke Public Schools, and I understand exactly what poverty in a classroom looks like. So I'm not legislating in theoreticals here. I understand what it looks like to have a classmate who's not eating properly at home, who doesn't have a bedtime, whose parents aren't around to help them with homework. I played in the playgrounds of this city. I rode my bike on the streets of this city growing up. I went through the youth sports leagues. And so all that's to say that I am a quick study when it comes to policy and legislation, but a lot of what Holyoke life is, I've experienced firsthand. And so I'm not going to have to go out and try and understand that piece of it. I know what it feels like. I know what it looks like. And I'm forever grateful to the services and resources that are available to a young Holyoker. And so I want to make sure that that's available for all young Holyokers still and for the future.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pat. Now I'm going to throw it over to Johan.
Thank you, Natalia, and Pat, thank you for being here with us. I have some random topic, and actually I'm going to use it as a follow-up as well when referring to the importance of being a sixth-generation Holyoker. At the same time, we can see on your campaign page on the web that you open up with saying you are a new voice for Holyoke. So with that being said, what it means to you, Old Holyoke?
Old Holyoke is simply, in my mind, the families that have lived here longer than New Holyoke. And I really don't have a date at which there's a cutoff. I don't know, where, neither are monolith. As I've knocked doors, there are conservatives who have moved to Holyoke. There are conservatives who have lived in Holyoke for a long time. There are progressives on both sides. And I think it's really important that we understand Holyokeers in many ways socialize and relate to one another based on, at times, multiple generations of family and friendships among them. And that's not something to throw away. Those relationships are important. And these are the folks who have been educators and worked in public safety and started businesses for years. I think we need to make sure that no matter where you come from, how long you've been here, your voice is heard and you feel welcome to step up and make an impact on a city, because frankly, we are in crisis mode here in Holyoke, and this is all hands on deck. And so anyone who's willing to get involved and roll up their sleeves, they ought to have a space at the table. Again, the reason I bring up my sixth generation family, the fact that I grew up in the city, is because the voters deserve to know my history. They deserve to know who I am. It's as relevant as my age. It's as relevant as the neighborhood I live in. It's as relevant as the education I've gotten. It all comes together to make me who I am.
And thinking about the combination of your motivation to be running for state rep for the fifth time then, and at the same time, the previous experience that you got the opportunity to have in previous iterations assisting other elected officials for the same position, what do you think will be some of the priorities that you will be taking care of should you be elected state rep?
Sure. So I kind of got into it a little bit earlier, but the Student Opportunity Act implementation is huge. It's got to be the priority of whoever the next state rep is from Holyoke. We need these dollars. We've needed these dollars since the 1993 Massachusetts Education Reform Act passed, that really left districts like Holyoke behind for decades. And so that's one of my top priorities. I think on the education piece, you also need to realize that it's going to impact whether or not businesses relocate here when they're seeking talented workforce from which to draw. It also impacts older Holyokers who may not have children in the district any longer, their ability to sell their homes when they want to downsize to young families. We need to continue to draw young families with children into the city. If you're not growing, you're dying, right? And that's really where we need to be thinking. We're a city of about 40,000 people. We were a city of 60,000 people. So we need to grow, and we need to do so with a strong middle class, and young families is a great way to do it.
Thank you.
Pat, following up, I have a couple of other questions regarding other races. Who do you support for senator from the state of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and why?
I'm running my own race here, and I'm just not getting into, I'm not getting into other people's races. It's hard enough to be a first-time candidate taking on a 5-term city councilor whose dad was the speaker and the incumbent's legislative aide during a pandemic. So I wish all the candidates well, but that will not be something I'm diving into in this race. I think that, we will be well served in the Senate.
Okay, no matter who wins. I suppose is how you were going to end that sentence.
Right.
Another follow-up question is, and it's based on what you just said, that we need to grow Holyoke and we need to expand the base of the middle class of property taxpayers, I suppose, people who own homes here who see this city as a place for them to grow as well,
Right.
not just as owning buildings and investments, but that is also important, just as important. How do you propose that can be done without spurring, say, gentrification, which then moves out a lot of people of limited income?
Sure. So I would say, again, we had 60,000 people living in Holyoke. And so I think we have room to grow without displacing, but we need to be careful in which kinds of developments we're bringing in. Frankly, I think our market is still struggling to attract the kind of investments that we really need to grow our tax base. But I'll say 2 weeks ago, I walked the flats, knocking doors and handing out literature, engaging voters. And what One Holyoke CDC has done there in terms of promoting home ownership opportunities is really powerful. I believe it's one of the highest Latinx home ownership rates in the state in terms of neighborhood. And so good on them for doing it. And I say, let's do more. As we see these large apartment buildings fall out of disrepair, we should really think about what are the alternatives that will allow local residents to begin building wealth through home ownership and feel more invested in the community. So I think that's really powerful. And the Housing Development Incentive Program, I think in Holyoke has been deployed well. And I was encouraged earlier in the session to see a push to actually raise that cap. Because for every dollar invested, I believe it's like $11 return in terms of private investment in a community. So let's build out our downtown. Let's build out these pockets that we see along South Street and elsewhere where there have been lots left open for many years. And let's get some families in here and let's build a school district that they can be proud to send their children to.
Would you say publicly who you support for president and why?
That one I think I could get away with. Yeah, sure. I'm a Joe Biden supporter. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pat Beaudry, for the time you've given us today. Good luck.
Thank you.
And I guess the last question, who's your dog? We all can see your dog back there.
Oh, you can? Yeah. That's Indiana,
Okay.
which we just adopted about 5 months ago from Indiana at a lab rescue. And we just found out she's actually half Mastiff. So she's about 1.5 years old. She's about 65 pounds. She might fill out a little bit more, but she's just the sweetest thing in the world. And while I'm working from home, she's my favorite office mate.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to.
If anything, any closing statement or message for people to consider supporting your candidacy?
Sure. I'm running this race the only way I know how, which is being true to myself and being truthful with the voters and going out there and having conversations one-on-one every single day. We worked the phones for months during the pandemic, and a few weeks ago, I just realized if you can go to Dunkin' Donuts, you can safely wear a mask and knock on doors. And since then, I've knocked on neighborhoods across the city and I've gotten great response. And so I'm going to continue to do that for the next 22 days. And I promise Holyokers, if they give me their support on September 1st, I'll give them 2 years of representation they can be proud of.